Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to the Devil's Advocate podcast. Usually, when I come into this fixture in the 3 years I've been doing this podcast, I'm delighted to say that the biggest game in English football is here, and really excited going into the game. But I think for many Man United fans, there's a lot of doom and gloom coming into this game. Look, as ever, with like Jack said actually backstage, big games, form goes out the window. There's a lot of permutations coming into, but obviously with Liverpool versus Manchester United, it is a big show, and the best thing I want to do is to get two pros on the show to discuss the biggest rivalry in English football, and obviously to talk about both clubs' form leading into the game as well, and also all the topics related to the club. So to the right of me, I'm joined by a good friend of mine, Jack Doherty. Actually newly signed for Cork City as well. Congratulations, Jack, on the move.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Good stuff. And also joined by former Manchester United striker Phil Marsh as well. Phil, how are you?
Yeah, all good, mate. I'm doing fine. Obviously, watching United at the minute, it's not going so well. But as we say, hopefully Sunday we can maybe, spring a surprise. But I'm not convinced.
Yeah, it's a tough one. I do think for many of us, I think that 7-0 last year obviously hurt, but also as well. Before going into that game, we're actually on some high. We're after winning the Carabao Cup. We're on a really good run of form. Plus, we beat Barcelona in the Europa League as well around that time. So, like going into this one, the feeling is much more different. Last year, I was going into it thinking we had a chance, considering Liverpool's form at the time and considering our form. But as ever, look, we'll see what happens when it comes to this game. But Jack, I'm going to come to you first. Obviously, before we talk about the game, obviously you had a great season. In the League of Ireland last year, they're scoring many goals for Cove Ramblers. Now you've got a move now to Cork City. Obviously growing up in Carrick and Shore, like the two big clubs locally enough to us in the League of Ireland would have been Waterford and Cork, and now you're after signing for both of them. Kind of what's your feeling? Obviously, making the move now to Cork City, but also as well kind of nearly completing the local clubs in the League of Ireland.
Yeah, look, it was a good season last season, as you said, but it could have been better again. I had a few injuries, out for 2 months. But look, it was a good season, to be fair, when you look back on it, you know what I mean? We were beaten in the playoff final as well, so. But look, there's big rivalries between all them clubs, But look, it comes down to who gives you the better deal at the end of the day and stuff like that, even though you have a loyalty to a club. In Ireland, it's different to England, where they can't tie people down to big, long contracts, you know what I mean? The 2 years max is what a team would probably offer you. Even some clubs might push it out to 3 years, but it's not like England where one club will say we'll sign and we have you for 3 years. It's kind of a lot of chopping and changing in Ireland, so that's the joys of it for a player, and it's not so good for fans really, because they get so attached to you and then you're gone, So look, I'll always have great respect for all the clubs I went to, but at the end of the day, when you have a family and that's what it comes down to,
Yeah, absolutely. And like, look, at the end of the day, Cork City are a massive club, have done great things in the League of Ireland. And now look, as you said, it comes down to a deal. It comes down to right place, right time. And look, to be fair, the fact that you had a great season with Cove last year, despite even injury as well. So look, best luck to you for next season. And look, obviously, I know a lot of listeners, who have listened to this pod from the local area will be looking out for your form. So best luck on that, Jack.
Thanks, bud. Thanks, I appreciate it. That's nice to get local lads following it as well. The buzz around the League of Ireland the last probably year, really, since COVID. It's been massive. Every club has got more fans in, more young kids there, So hopefully it keeps getting better,
100%. And look, I think just on that as well, like I think you've seen us in the cup final in the Aviva a couple of weeks ago when Bows and Pats were playing up there. It's unbelievable. Did they get a full Aviva then as well? And like you're talking about the buzz, like I've seen many games in the League of Ireland last year where fans, like most stadiums in Ireland are filled out, and pre-COVID that mightn't have happened. So like, it's good to see that the funding is there. Just like not the funding, the support is there. It just be great now if the FAI, if they can pump a bit more money into League of Ireland, it'd be great for obviously the development of the young players and also for the help of the national team as well.
Yeah, no, 100%. That's what it comes down to at the end of the day. It's funding, really, you know. I know the fans getting in and that is helping the clubs, but you need that bit more as well from the likes of the FAI and stuff like that, you know. But look, there's a lot more lads looking to buy into clubs in Ireland now, so look, it seems to be getting better, you know.
Yeah, 100%. And look, for myself, I'd love to see the League of Ireland to start get Mac kicking, because then that means we can get more development. Like you look at some of the players who are playing the Premiership at the moment, like Ogbene, Evan Ferguson, players like that who've come through the League of Ireland system and now obviously are playing at the top level doing the Premier League. So like it'd benefit the national team if that happened as well. So like, look, it'd be interesting to see what happens with the League of Ireland in the next couple of years.
Yeah, no, it will. And you touching on Evan there, I was at the PFAI Awards only there 2 weeks ago. His parents and that got the award for him up there, and his father and that were talking like he's so grounded, like they don't even talk about soccer or that. And he was saying, and you know, at home life and all that, trying to get that mix. And you can see why he's doing so well just from listening to him talking about it. You'd like to see more lads, younger lads, coming out of the league and hopefully kicking on like him. I know you have to be exceptional in that as well, but like it just helps when you have a good background behind you too, you know.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. And that's why, look, I think not just League of Ireland, just this country, but in general, if we talk about players having good attitudes and good application, I think that's something, Phil. Ourselves, we probably had discussion points about this, our own club, United, at the moment, in terms of players that are taking things for granted. And I just want to bring you in kind of on our club at the minute, because Jack talked about a couple of things there in terms of culture, keeping your head down, working hard. And obviously, our form at the minute has been nothing short of shocking. And we've seen a lot of leaks come out of the club. We've seen, obviously a work rate be non-existent on the pitch. You obviously from being at the club before, and yet when you look at kind of the toxicity that's coming out, but also just players taking the shirt for granted, like what do you make of this? And obviously, looking at the dressing room you would have been in, would this been tolerated before?
Yeah, I think it's a really weird sort of situation at the minute with the club. I think, when go back to the time I was there, and the club was completely run differently. You had a top class manager who was ruthless, but had all the dressing room under control at all times. We had big personalities, leaders, proper professionals, what I would call them, in terms of the application on a day-to-day basis. The way they sort of was away from the club as well. I think, nowadays it's completely changed. The modern day football is, there's for me, there's too much going on outside of football. There's too many distractions, and you can see that with the performances on the pitch. Some of them, you don't even look that interested. There's no desire. As you said, some of them take the sort of shirt for granted. There's no real sort of competition within the group for me at the minute. I think, obviously there's a lot of injuries and suspensions, which is sort of, having an impact on the squad, which, you can look at that and sort of, give the manager a little bit of, a leeway with that. But again, it comes down to me, you've got to want to do it yourself first and foremost. And I think we've got far too many players in this current squad that haven't really got that, hunger and passion of playing for Manchester United, which is certainly what you need to play at that top level.
Yeah, 100%. And I do think there's definitely not a single certain people out, but I do think there's not just one or two individuals. I think the overall group, I do think that they don't take enough accountability for their performances. And I think we're seeing that a lot lately now, where they go hiding, they pull out for challenge, they don't contest that second ball. I do think there's a lot of that, within the team. And you mentioned injuries. I think obviously the losses of like Casemiro, Lisandro Martinez in that spine, I do think they are a massive loss, not just obviously for maybe probably the more physical side of the game, but also the ability to actually play out from the back. And obviously starting that first phase, I do think that's something that is a massive issue. But Jack, obviously, you're obviously a Liverpool fan. When you look at Man United at the moment, Obviously, the performances on the pitch have been very underwhelming. They've been quite poor. But when you hear a lot of stuff about the culture of the club, and you look at obviously you see leaks, and you see people falling out with each other, such as Jadon Sancho, etc. What do you make of kind of what's been going on the last couple of months, and how bad do you think it is from the outside looking in?
Yeah, it doesn't look good, does it? Like when you're getting leaks out about certain players and stuff like that. I was only listening to the Neville and Keane thing, and he was saying back then, like, them leaks wouldn't be allowed to get out. Like, they'd be everything would be controlled in house. They wouldn't be allowed to get out. They wouldn't. I remember he was saying that they sacked certain media outlets from coming into the press conferences or whatever like that. They were on about doing that again recently, weren't they, or something?
Yeah.
They weren't allowed certain outlets in or something. So, like it's all messy when it gets like that, But I think from when the manager came into United and he said they were going to change the way they played, have his stamp on it. From outside looking in on that, he doesn't have a stamp on the way he wants to play, a structure, what he wants them to do. You look at Bournemouth, for instance, last week against you. I watched a bit of that game. He's nowhere near the resources that United have, that manager at Bournemouth. But you watch that game, you can see the way he wants them to play. They get after people, they're pressing, when they get on it, they're good on the ball, they keep the ball, they go forward most passes, Years ago when you watch United, you know what they were doing, get the ball wide in the box. They've no way of playing, And that's the big thing for me, I think. If you get any of the top managers in there, I know they'll have whatever upstairs, they'll have the board or whatever, but you still have a way you want to play, and you get people in that will play the way you want to play. He doesn't have an identity, and I think that's a big thing, from looking in.
I do think with that, you mentioned the identity. I do think that if you look at the start of last season, he tried to play the Ajax way at United and got battered in the first 2 games, and he abandoned that style. And then he kind of went a bit more pragmatic, went more counter-attacking last year. But then it's weird because from what he's saying in his press conferences, Phil, especially with this as well, one week he's saying he wants control, but then the start of this pre-season, he said he wanted us to be the best transition team in the league. This season, we're getting nothing but battered in the transition. This season, do you think it's a case of like Jack said, we're having a lack of identity, but if he's going to be, let's say, a team that wants to control the ball, or B, if he wants to be a counter-attacking team, he kind of needs to make up his mind at this point, but also as well, start picking players to play that exact way, because if you're going to try to control the game, as well as Scott McTominay is doing in terms of scoring goals, he can't be playing in midfield, can he?
No, I mean, it's a sort of double-edged sword, really. I feel sorry for him in one respect that, he's had a lot of injuries, he had a lot of suspensions, and players not at his disposal in certain periods where he's probably wanted to play a certain way against certain teams. But then I agree with Jack, really, when he came in, I think now he's sort of 18 months into his tenure at the club, and we're still not really seeing an identity and sort of a style of play that he's sort of happy with, which for me is quite worrying. I think he definitely needs to just make his mind up with which way he wants to try and play, regardless now of whether he thinks the players are good enough to play it. I just think you've got to, nail down and sort of give the players the right information. I think there's too many mixed messages. There's too much chopping and changing. There's no real sort of, identity in the play. And you can see that with, obviously, what's going on in training. I mean, I'm questioning what's going on in training. I mean, I used to think, I used to be lucky enough to go and watch the first team, when I was at the club, with the players that we had back then. And I used to see them in training, and every single one of them applied themselves in training. And then I'd go and watch them at Old Trafford, and it was exactly the same. They'd be running around 100%, putting tackles in, the way to pass, everybody on the front foot. And that's how it's got to be. I watch us and I think, what have we been doing in the week's training leading up to this? Because, it just looks like there's no idea, there's no structure, there's no plan. And yeah, it's worrying. I mean, it's something's got to give. We've been through a really tough patch in the last couple of games. Bournemouth at home was a massive eye opener really for how bad and sort of how far off we really are at this moment in time. So yeah, things have got to change, and it's a results-based business. I do feel sorry for the manager in a certain way, but he's going to be under pressure, and especially if we get a big hiding at the weekend.
Yeah, I do think look, he is under pressure. I do think there's no two ways around it. I do think football's results business. We've just been knocked out of the Champions League, and we're only gonna have one game a week now for the rest of the season. At the end of the day, we're gonna have to start getting results. We're gonna have to start picking, and not even the results as well. The performances have to get better. They just have to, because you can't, ride your luck all season. You just can't do that. It's not sustainable. Like it really isn't at any level of football. And especially at United, I think when you look at the top, like United's ambition this season would be obviously to make sure to try to get back into that Champions League next year. Now, being completely honest about it, what's the point qualifying for it if you're not going to contest it? That's just my point of view. On that, but if they want to get back into the top four, they're going to have to be consistent. They're going to have to pick up results. But then you look at teams around them. You look at, Tottenham are playing well at the moment. Villa are fucking exceptional at the moment. Unai Emery, like you're talking about identity and a manager coming in a short space of time and really implementing something. Unai Emery is doing that tenfold at Villa. Obviously, then you have teams around there who are going to be fighting for you. You're going to have, I was about to say Chelsea, but they're fucked. They're even worse than us at the minute. So you obviously have the likes of Brighton and that, creeping up around that area, Newcastle. I do think the top three are kind of cemented now at this point. I do think they'll be fighting for the title. I do think from fourth down to about 8th or 9th will be fighting for that kind of fourth spot between now and the end of the season. I do think that top three is going to kind of change around. I do think they'll separate themselves from the rest between now and the end of the year. So if United are going to have any chance getting back into the Champions League next season, it's going to have to start this week, really and truly. And that's a tough fucking ask considering we haven't scored a goal at Anfield since 2018 under Jose Mourinho, and we haven't won there since 2016 under Van Gaal. And that's probably the last, even though if you look at like all the managers post Fergie, he's probably the only one who probably had an identity fully, even though the football was fucking torrid. And like, I remember going to games at Old Trafford, we'd have 65% possession, but only a couple of shots on target or one shot on target. But you can see what he's trying to do every week in terms of trying to keep the ball. Whereas with this current team, I can't see the idea anymore. I can't see, I can't turn up to a game. Like I remember went to the game Tuesday night. I didn't know what type of performance we were going to get because the week before against Chelsea, we were really good. Against Bournemouth, then it's got played off the park. I don't know what to expect, week on week with this team. I do think it's become the common theme, not just under Erik ten Hag, but other managers as well. I do think it makes me think: is this a personnel issue? Is this a cultural issue at the moment? There's so many questions I have in my head at the moment.
I think that's been the biggest problem, as you say. Like last year, obviously, in his first year, the manager came in. There was some good football in spells. We obviously got a trophy, finished in the top four. I think fans maybe got a little bit carried away with that and was expecting us to maybe kick on this year and sort of maybe improve off the back of that. I think this year, we look at the performances all the way up to now from the very start of the season. I think I could probably count on one hand how many games we've actually played well in. And the majority of them have been in the Champions League in little spells, like we played well against Bayern Munich a little bit, Copenhagen, until Rashford got sent off. But other than that, all the rest of the games, I couldn't really say I enjoyed watching the game or we actually had control in the game. We played really well for a full 90 minutes, not even a full 45 minutes in some games. It's just really sort of, worrying. And again, does that come down to the way the manager's setting the team up? Is it the style of play or is it the personnel? And I think, the vast majority of people and fans will look at the personnel because we've seen this so many times under, 3 or 4 different managers.
Yeah, it's a blend of different squads there, definitely. And like a massive clear out was needed. And I do think that when Ratcliffe comes in, it gets that new kind of football and structure there. I think the manager needs time to get players out, but also have someone above him tell him no. Because if he wants players like Anthony and players like that to come in and he's adamant to get them in, like Jack will know, will know a lot in terms of when Jurgen Klopp came into Liverpool, he wanted to bring in Julian Brandt, and Michael Edwards turned around and said, no, Mo Salah is a better fit for your system. He vetoed him on that. So I do think, like, with our manager and our club, we need someone to tell our manager no. No one told Jose Mourinho no for signing Victor Lindelof. Do you know what I mean? No one told Solskjaer no for signing a player like Dan James. I do think we need people above to say, if this is the way you want to play, we need the right people in place to obviously work the manager and do data analysis and all this type of stuff. So to make sure we have the right players in place to play a certain way, because right now we've players from about 3 or 4 different managers and we're trying to play a certain way and it's just not working. And it's the cohesion just isn't there. And like long term, if you look at all these other clubs, like I said a minute ago, around us, who have a certain way of playing, they've the right players to play that system. And I do think even if Ten Hag gets a sack and we get another manager in, they need the exact same, like I said, get them players out, get as many out as you can, and get their own players in to play their own brand of football. But Jack, we're going to move on to Liverpool because last season it was a bit of a weird one for you, in terms of usually you were challenging for the title, but then you're in a top 4 race and you had a very good end to the last season. Post the 7-0 win, you got yourselves a bit of run of form. Narrowly missed out in the Champions League. But this season, obviously, you're back at it. You're back challenging for the league. And it seems like Liverpool are kind of playing the football, kind of reminiscent of what they were doing. When they're challenging for trophies under Jurgen Klopp. What has it been like for you this season as a Liverpool fan in comparison to last year? And what do you make of the rebuild he's done? Kind of get rid of the experienced players like Henderson, Milner, and kind of bringing in kind of these younger lads like McAllister, Szoboszlai, etc.
Yeah, look, like you said, it's bringing in the right people at the right time. It was that midfield was coming to an end. The way Klopp plays, high intensity, like an identity. He plays high press. Lads need to get around the pitch, and their legs were kind of coming to the end. You can't keep flogging lads for 4 years straight. You know what I mean? So you brought in the likes of Szoboszlai, McAllister. I still think we need another defensive midfielder. I was over at the Fulham game. They're still lacking, I think, 1 or 2 players, I think, to be fair to, like, Nunes kind of frustrates you as well at times. He's a raw striker, like, could score a worldie, and then the little simple things where he's just a simple little touch or a layoff pass, bringing other people in, he's still a bit raw. But like Liverpool always, to be fair to them, they recruit well. They get the right players. Like they could have caught Casido and all them, for mad, but they obviously didn't think that they were worth that. So they get the right players, and to be fair, I didn't know what to expect from Szoboszlai. To be fair, I watched him a good bit with Leipzig and stuff like that, but he looks quality. Even live, his movement is brilliant. And he's good legs as well. He's kind of like a Henderson, but probably better on the ball than Henderson and that. But no, look, they're actually good to watch this year. I know they're still leaking a few goals and stuff like that. That's the only thing. What I said at the start, I think the game I think the game can go either way the weekend. One of them games where Liverpool are favourites, obviously, going into the game, but that can happen in football. When you play the game, some team might turn up and the other team might have an off day, and they're giving away sloppy goals or whatever. But United will have to be on it to beat Liverpool, or to get a result at all against Liverpool. They'll have to be on it. But the only thing is that I think Liverpool will score. So it's trying to keep out Liverpool really, and then scoring yourself. Like you said, you haven't scored in Anfield in a while, so it will be tough for me. But I wouldn't be one going into it saying, "Oh, Liverpool are just going to batter United." I'd never really go into them games like that. As I was on this before with you, and I'd always be saying the games can go either way, no matter who is ahead of who or who's flying and who's not flying. But Nah, look, they're good to watch this year, to be fair to them, and they seem to be getting back to the old Liverpool, and it's good, like, to watch it,
Phil, I'm kind of what Jack said. Obviously, Liverpool have done an overhaul, and obviously the experienced players have left the club. We've seen at United when our experienced players left, we've struggled. They've actually thrived. They brought in the right players. But I wanted to ask you about not a new player, but a player whose role has changed this season in Trent Alexander-Arnold, Phil. He seems to kind of developed into kind of a more midfield player for Liverpool. He drops into midfield, kind of a central role, and he's doing the same for England as well. Do you think he's better suited to kind of that midfield role rather than a conventional right back?
It's a difficult one, really, because I think from right back he offers you something a little bit different, but because of how good he is technically, that range of passing that he's got is brilliant. Probably one of the best we've seen in the Premier League, certainly with some of the assists that he's given over the last few years. I think in the midfield, he has sort of done really well this year. I think he doesn't get as exposed as much in terms of his 1v1 defending. It's probably his weakest part of his game. I think he sort of can get away with that a little bit more in the midfield. And yeah, I think, he's scoring a few goals as well. So, for them, he should be somebody who they maybe, are looking at moulding into that position. But again, it comes down to, having someone who's versatile in that position. He can play in the defence, and now he can play into that sort of hybrid role in the midfield. So it's a good problem for Klopp to have there for Liverpool. And as I say, he has got that quality. He can from basically 20-30 yards in his own half, he can put a ball and play someone through, going one-on-one with the keeper. So to have someone with that quality and sort of that weaponry, it's a great sort of perk to have, unfortunately, for Liverpool.
Yeah, it is. No, even on that, it's because he gets so much time on the ball as well, playing in that little pocket. That's probably why they gives him kind of the freedom to kind of drop off a midfielder but be ahead of a forward where he can't get pressed. And he's so much time on him, and his passing is a joke. Like he was ding on him, but he'll pick you out from anywhere. It's actually a joy to watch him strike a ball. Like.
Yeah, and I think with the forward players that Liverpool have got, making them little runs, the diagonal runs for the straight pass and stuff like that, it's very hard to defend against. And we've seen over the years the amount of goals that Salah scored, off a Trent Alexander-Arnold, ball over the top or into the space. It's difficult to defend against. Any defender will tell you, if someone's dropping a ball just over your head and someone's running in behind, it's so hard to sort of stop and defend against, especially with someone who's got that type of quality.
As well, like when you look at the way he kind of strikes a ball, like his switches of playing, the way he strikes a ball, some of it partly reminds me a bit of Scholesy in him. The way he'd look up, like you said, drop into that pocket and pick out a pass. In that regard, the way he's kind of he scans and picks out that pass. It kind of reminds me a bit when Scholes dropped deep in his later years. When he kind of in and around the kind of the 6 type of role. When he does that, it kind of reminds me a bit of Scholes in that way.
Yeah, 100%. I think he's that confident with his technical ability. I think a lot of players would probably look up and see that ball and maybe shy away from it, just not fully backing themselves to sort of do it. But I think someone like Trent, who's obviously got the confidence and the ability to do it, he just doesn't even think about it, and he can ping a 70-yard pass straight into someone's feet 9 times out of 10. So as I say, it's a great weapon to have. I think that's when you're looking at the top teams around, especially in the European football side of things, a lot of the big teams have them type of players in the midfield who can unlock defenses with them kind of passes, quick change of play, and then somebody who can make that ball, for somebody to get in and not give the defense time to sort of shuffle across. So yeah, he definitely reminds me of Scholes with them passes. Gerrard, you could say maybe as well, who was someone who did that kind of thing. So it's definitely a bonus for Liverpool having someone like that in the team.
Do you think Gareth Southgate, when you look at the way England probably have limited options in terms of that kind of 6 role, obviously beside Declan Rice, so if they're playing 2 6s, maybe you're Bellingham ahead of him. Calvin Phillips hasn't played much football it's all this season, and he mightn't even play anything until maybe late January when he gets a loan move in January. Is that maybe a role Trent plays when you consider the options England have at right back, such as Trippier, Walker, and maybe if he can get fit, Reece James as well? Do you think maybe Trent, maybe his I suppose journey into the national team is actually more as a midfielder rather than a right back?
It's definitely worth trying. For me, I think, when you look at the quality we've got, especially with England, having Trent in that central position with the sort of capabilities he's got and to, the passing range, for me, as you say, we have got an abundance of right backs that are top class. So if you are going to get him in the team, which I think, this season especially, he's been playing really well, you've got to maybe look at getting him in the team. Where would his best position be? For me, get him in that central position. As Jack said, when he's got a bit of time on the ball, there's nobody better really for me, and who can, pick a pass and play a ball into space for someone to run onto. So, for England, especially with Keane as well, because Keane likes to drop in deep as well, that creates space in behind, and we've got, inverted strikers there who make them little diagonal runs. So it's a problem for the manager. Obviously, he has to come up with a solution to try and get everybody in the team. But I think Southgate's, definitely should experiment with that and give him a couple of games, give him a run of games, and let's see how he gets on.
Yeah, I do think it's probably the position he should play there, because like Phillips won't be match fit, and you think if you look at other options, the only other player who could probably make dictate beside him is maybe James Ward-Prowse, but he doesn't have the experience on the big stage. And then do you really want to drop Jude deeper? Because obviously Doug further forward from Madrid this year, he's playing some ball. So I do think if you look at his future on the international stage, it's probably him beside Declan Rice. You have Rice to do all the dirty work in there, and from a technical standpoint for England, I do think having maybe Trent and Bellingham in there can definitely help him from a creative aspect. Then when you have your runners like Saka, Grealish, Rashford in there, England have many options. But we'll be talking about the Euros later on in months to come. Not from an Irish perspective, we're not there, but we will be talking about the Euros and every other player in the Premier League who could be there. But because both of you are strikers, lads, I want to talk to you about Marcus Rashford, because last season and the previous seasons, his goal scoring numbers have improved. And he has the odd kind of off season or off couple of months, but this year it's been a really astronomical drop from where he was last year. Just scoring 30 goals in all competitions, and being United's kind of talisman. Jack, I want to come to you first, because we've discussed Marcus before in terms of what he can do in a Man United shirt. But he looks like a player who A, can't make the right decision on the pitch at the moment, but B, his confidence at the minute just looks gone. He looks like a shell of himself. As a striker, when you look at him, what do you think is going on, A, in his head, and just with his game at the moment?
Yeah, it's hard to kind of pinpoint it, because you seem to have that conversation every couple of years. You think, and he's hitting a bit of form, then he has the off year or whatever, and then he seems to be hitting a bit of form again, and then he seems to be going back to where he was before that. Like, it's hard to kind of pinpoint it. Like, I know being a forward is a lot down to confidence. Like, if you're scoring regularly, you're not really thinking about what you're doing, you're just getting in. You don't think about, like, say, if you getting in one-on-one, you don't have enough time to think about, I'm going to just slot it here. When things are just going for you, you just seem to ride with it. Like, from even myself playing last year, when everything seems to be going for you, you just seem to go with the bit of luck that you seem to be getting. But then again, you have to create that own little bit yourself due to whatever movement coming inside, whatever it is. But for me, looking at like the way Rashford plays, he needs a lot of grass in front of him. You know what I mean? He's not a type of player just come in off the line. If things are not going well, if he's not able to get in behind somebody, don't come in and try to get on the ball and try link off at the main striker. You know what I mean? But it's hard to really pinpoint it, to be honest. He does have abundance of ability. Like, his pace is frightening. But then again, you have to, at that level, you can't just rely on pace all the time. You have to be clever as well with your movement, and out to in runs, like Phil was saying, the way Salah makes them runs, he's never really out of a game, even if he's not playing well. He seems to be always getting in the right positions and scoring, even in off games. So it's hard to tell with Rashford, because it comes a stage where if the penny don't drop, you're kind of saying, give him a bit of time again. But confidence is a big thing in forwards. Like every forward relies on confidence, but you create your own confidence as well, by just keep working, like being demanding on yourself and trying to get the best out of yourself all the time, and like when things don't go well, it's down to you. If things go well, it's down to you as well. So look, it's a hard one to say, really, I think, because United are going to be hard on him anyway because he's a local lad as well, and they'd expect a lot from a local lad, and he has to really take a lot of it on his own shoulders too, because being a local player, like, you take the good and you take the bad, you have to take the hit too, but he should be like one of the main leaders, I feel, in that group, because he's local, like he knows what it means to play for United and stuff like that, but yeah, I can't really put my finger on it, to be honest, but if it keeps going like that for him, I think maybe a change or something, go a new club, if a new manager don't come in, I don't know, would he like to just play at United all the time, when things are not going well and you're there for so long, maybe a fresh change or something, as a player like myself, I feel like if you're there at a place so long and it's the same thing happening all the time, maybe a fresh start is if a new manager don't come in, It's hard to say. You know more, like a lot more than me from watching him as well. I wouldn't watch him as much as you'd watch him.
Phil, you've been obviously in and around the training ground. You've obviously met the players, so you met himself as well. For someone who's obviously you're local lad as well. You came through the academy. You know what it means to play for the club, and you obviously would have had a similar kind of route to the first team as what he would have had as well. Jack mentioned a phrase a moment ago. He said penny drops. Obviously, he's at 26 years of age, and he's had good seasons. Last season, he had a great season, but when it goes wrong for him, it goes astronomically wrong. Do you think is Rashford at a stage in his career now where it's put up or shut up, basically this moment in terms of his form? Because at the end of the day, he's not a young player anymore, and I think that tag, that phrase, it's kind of getting worn out a bit.
Yeah, mate. I think that's the biggest concern, really. When you talk about Marcus Rashford, everybody knows he's a confidence player. As Jack said there last season, he's flying, goals are going in. You're looking forward to the next game. You don't really think too much about your game because everything's sort of falling for you. You sort of hitting the back of the net regular. I think for me, you learn more about a player when the games aren't going quite as well for you. Times are going a little bit tougher. You're not scoring goals. Then you've got to look at what kind of personality has that player got. What characteristics does he have? Does he want to fight through the hard times and sort of really do the basics? I've been plenty of times in my career where I've maybe not scored for 4 or 5 games and you get a little bit frustrated and you start thinking, you're overthinking things, you're snatching at shots, you're doing everything that you shouldn't be doing. But the only way you get out of them situations is by working your socks off, still putting a shift in, still putting yourselves in the right positions to get the chances. And eventually, one of them chances will go in, and then, that's it. Then you back off and running again. For me, when I watch Marcus Rashford, especially this season, the body language and the way that his demeanour is on the pitch, his work rate, he's sort of sulking, he's feeling sorry for himself. All the traits that, shout to me that he's, not going to turn the corner and not going to sort of find his form again. There's only himself really who's going to get himself out of this situation. Nobody else can, physically dig him out of this hole that he's currently in. And I think, as you just said, people still say about, give him time. How many times has this situation happened? How many times has it, reoccurred where he's got a bit of a dip in form? But players go through dips in form. That's not a problem as long as you're still putting a shift and you're still working your socks off and fighting for the club and putting your body on the line. Whereas for Marcus Rashford, when he has a dip in form, it's like playing with 10 men. You're carrying players. You can't afford to carry any players at any level of football, but especially not in the Premier League. And for me, the even more worrying thing about it is the time of the sort of period of time that it has a knock-on effect. It's like when Marcus Rashford is in low confidence, it's not 1 or 2 games that he struggles in. It's like 9 or 10. And then people are saying, what's going on? And obviously the manager's made the decision in the last couple of weeks to drop him. The Newcastle game was a prime example of what I've just said about the lack of enthusiasm, the sort of attitude, and for me it's a massive period now for Marcus Rashford in this next sort of 4 or 5 weeks. These next couple of games could be pivotal in whether he's actually going to show whether he actually wants to stay and fight for his right to sort of be at the club and sort of try and get his confidence back, or whether he sits and feels sorry for himself and maybe looks at moving on, as Jack said.
Yeah, you have to. What's to say? He has to really fight to get back in because Garnacho's ahead of him now. And Garnacho is playing well. Yeah, why you can't just drop Garnacho and bring back in Rashford? So, like you said, he has to bite down and fight for his position, or else have to go and play somewhere else. Because he's not just going to walk back in that team with how well Garnacho is playing. To be fair to him,
And again, I think that comes down to training for me. Like obviously, when you the starting lineup and you're playing every week and everything's going well, you can maybe sort of take your eye off it a little bit in training and take things for granted slightly. Not that you should ever do that, but that does happen. But when this situation now where we're looking at it and Garnacho is ahead of you and Anthony's been playing and whatever, it doesn't come across to me that Marcus Rashford's the type of player, the type of person with his personality that he's going to go into training on, whatever, and be sort of like saying, I'm going to show you this week in training why I should be playing. I'm going to show you that you need to have me in the starting lineup. It comes across to me, and I don't know whether you guys agree with me, that he will be like strutting around in training and not really giving his all. And I think that is like it's a generational thing. Don't get me wrong. I think there's loads of players that do that, and I think this day and age it has changed a lot from when I was at the club. But I think that's where you sort of learn a lot about a player and what they really stand for, and do they have that inner belief and desire to sort of really give it everything to get themselves back into the sort of moment that he was in last year where he was flying. I'm questioning that massively.
Yeah.
Well, that does come down to as well as mentality, lads, isn't it? Like I think you've seen down the years, like one prime example I'd use right in this situation. He's nowhere near Rashford is nowhere near the ability of this player. But if you looked at like Phil, you would have looked at Ronaldo in his younger years at United, where he was inconsistent. Some of his performances were bad. He'd go through a really bad patch, but he'd done extra hours on the training ground to get himself out of that. He built himself up physically, mentally, worked on his shooting, worked on his head, and working on his positional work. I talked to Relly Mullenstein on the pod here, and he was telling me about the amount of work Rooney and Ronaldo, two of them done off the pitch, at that time. And it seems like this is the thing where he's taking his position for granted. His demeanor on the pitch is just so wrong. He's not tracking back. He's not putting a tackle in. He's not getting up for a header. And while all these things might sound like simple things, I do think that they all add up. And at the end of the day, if he's not applying himself on the pitch, then and you've a young player there like Garnacho, who's one of the brightest prospects in the Premier League in that position, United have to have a look at it and say, like, look, he's on 375,000 a week. He's becoming a very expensive problem at the moment. And do you really want to set the culture in the dressing room is really bad at the moment? But do you want to even set another, even prolong that cultural issue by having your highest paid player at the club stink it out, not work hard in training and then play games? I think that's the question you have to ask with that.
I think just on that as well with that, I think when you just mentioned about Ronaldo, obviously I thinking back then to when I was at the club, and as you said, Ronaldo when he first signed, he went through peaks and troughs and had some really good performances and then some indifferent performances. But the difference being, obviously, as you just touched on, when he was out of the team and when he maybe got left out of the squad or dropped for a few games, he would be on the training ground and Sir Alex would be looking through the blinds and Ronaldo's out with a bag of balls, and that kind of thing is a big is a big difference in terms of, you know, the manager's looking for, you know, his response. He's looking at how he deals in adversity. What's he doing? How's he getting himself back into the team? What's he got to do? And, you know, as a player, you can only do so much. But if you're staying behind doing extra, you know, you're going in the gym, getting yourself as fit as you can be, you're putting 100% in training, you know, you're applying yourself, you know, as good as you can, then, you know, that is how you get yourself back into the starting 11. And that is exactly what Ronaldo did. He you know, he did absolutely everything. You know, he was the first into training and he was the last to leave. No stone was left unturned with him. He did everything he could to make sure that he had, you know, the best chance of getting into that team. Whereas, you know, it's a bit of an extreme comparison because Ronaldo is a freak, and you know, but when I look at Marcus,
that's the example. That's the example.
Yeah. That's the bar that's been set, and he should know that because, you know, he's seen that, and there's been other players, you know, that have probably done the same over the years that he's seen. He just doesn't strike me as the type of player that will be doing that. You know, I can't envision Marcus Rashford, you know, after training being out there with a bag of balls, or, you know, going to the sort of gym instructors saying like, right, I need to get myself back at it. What can I do? Give me some personalized programs to, you know, get me back into the zone. I think that for me is another thing that isn't really sort of helping him in terms of getting himself in the manager's plans and thoughts. Because if you are out of the team and you're not playing well, as a player, you're thinking, how am I going to get back into the team? What have I got to do? I can't just wait for an injury. I can't just wait for someone to get suspended. I want to get back in the team next week. So this week in training, I'm doing absolutely everything I can to sort of, even just little things like getting in the manager, like as I said then with Ronaldo, you know, like he'll be outside blasting balls, free kicks, and the manager will take note of that and he'll think, all the rest of the players have gone home, he's still here. You know, and it's little details like that which make a big difference. And I think some of these players now, you know, with what I'm seeing on a match day, you can certainly see that there's not enough going on the training ground.
Yeah, 100%. And again, it comes down to commitment, the culture issue. I don't know, obviously football is obviously a lot different to what it was, you know, in the peak times of the Premier League, especially.
Yeah.
The club, I think the culture of the club is a lot different since then. I do think, like, from speaking to yourself, Lee, and others who would have been there, Joe, back then shit wasn't tolerated at the club, but now it seems a lot of things are tolerated in the club on and off the pitch. And look, it's just the culture has been set horrendously from the top, and it's something that we can't help at the moment. But Jack, I kind of want to move back to Liverpool. On this, we mentioned a few minutes ago that you're kind of, Joe, you're back in a title charge this season, but you're also playing in the Europa League, and obviously the likes of Salah will be going off to like the African Cup of Nations during the second half of the season. Where's your head at in terms of competing on all fronts? Because obviously with new squad, new transition that you're kind of going through, and it's going well for you at the moment. Do you look at the other cup competitions and maybe do you think Liverpool should now maybe, considering you've kind of freshened up and your squad's a bit younger, do you maybe think, you know, how far do you think Klopp's going to take serious the Europa League? But also, do you think, you know, the Premier League is almost going to become a priority, considering the last time you won the league, you know, your fans didn't get the chance to see that? Do you think Klopp's maybe thinking that in the back of his mind, we need to give the fans that moment, and that's, you know, maybe he might prioritize the Premier League over, you know, Europe and, you know, stuff like the FA Cup?
Yeah, look, it's always nice to be in cups as a player to win a cup as well. But realistically, like, your league is your bread and butter. Like, you know, if you're there with a chance to win the league, you should be putting everything into the league, really. But that's down to having a decent enough squad as well, giving other lads a game and stuff like that. That's why the cups will probably help. The longer they go winning in the cup, like, I'd say he will rotate it a bit, because you're not going to be able to, like, flog the players, same players every week. You're going to have injuries then, you know what I mean? So, look, it'll be tough if he does stay in most of the cups, to be fair, you know. But that's why you have a squad, you know. You need to be able to rotate lads and stuff like that. Like the other night, like saying rotate, not bring any Van Dijk and all them lads. for the league on the weekend. I think you have to prioritise the league. If that's your bread and butter, that's what you want to win. And come Christmas, if they're still up near the top, they'll have a chance, because City are dropping points and Arsenal are dropping points. You're going to have. It's going to be close. I think at the minute I was saying up to there about 2-3 weeks ago, I was saying City will probably still win it, and they probably will still win it, to be honest, because they're just, they'll find a rhythm and they just could go on 3-4 games, 10 games, not being beaten, But look, if they're still there or thereabouts, I would prioritise the league, to be honest, because it's what you work for in pre-season. You want the first thing you get into pre-season, you talk about, I want to win the league this year. You don't talk about, I want to win all these cups. They just kind of go the further you get go on in them cups, I think, the bread and butter is the league, and that's what, if they're still up near the top end, it will come down to that, I'd say.
Yeah, 100%. I do think with Liverpool at the moment, the factor in the Europa League and the fact that, obviously, the cup competitions they're doing well, and I do think you have to look at the league, and you have to look at Man City and even Arsenal, to the extent how far Arsenal went last season toe to toe with City. The fact that it's a 3-team race. I wouldn't say Liverpool completely sacked the thing off, but see players like Harvey Elliott, players like that, give them that Europa League exposure. Selfishly from an Irish point of view, I'd like to see Caoimhín Kelleher play all that the whole Europa League campaign, even if you get to the latter stages, to see that happen. I do think for Liverpool at the moment, I'd be in the same boat as you, Jack. I'd be saying prioritise that league because of the strength of City, strength of Arsenal, and even if Villa stay there, 4 teams, you just never know. You never know, do you? This season has been a crazy one in terms of the competitiveness at the very top of the league. And look, I do think if Liverpool can be still in the race after AFCON, I do think that could be massive if Mo Salah still scoring goals. If he can get a tune out of Nunes, I think that could be massive, because if you look at his expected goals rate is very, very high, but though his chance conversion is low. If he can start putting them away, that takes the pressure off Salah. Then all of a sudden, now you have Salah, then you have Diaz, getting the goals. Diogo Jota, that bastard scores against United every fucking time he plays against us. He was with Wolves. He was a fucker. But players like that, chipping in, Szoboszlai chipping in with goals, Liverpool all of a sudden don't have to go from that front three, the famous front three, Salah, Firmino, and Mane. If they can start chipping in from midfield, I do think they could have a really big chance to win the league. And especially, Jack did mention, Phil, City could come back, but Kevin De Bruyne, is not going to be back for another good while. Defensively, they look very off, and also as well, they have the Club World Cup in the middle of the season. So if there's a chance for Liverpool to win the title this year, you would have to say this year is probably the best chance they've had since they've last won it.
Yeah, definitely. I think the promising thing as well for Liverpool at the moment is, especially in the league, they've not been playing that well in certain games, and they're still getting results. They're still grinding out results, still finding a way to win, and for me, that's the sign of a good team. When you're not playing well, but you're still picking up 3 points. I think, as you say, I agree with you. For me, in Liverpool's position where they are at the moment, the league has got to be your priority. You're in other cup competitions as well, which is great, but I think that's where your squad rotation kicks in. I think Liverpool have just been going quietly under the radar a little bit with the way they've been picking up results and stuff. And again, I think as you say, there's been a few surprise packages this year with some of the teams that are up there, Villa and teams like that. Obviously, Tottenham started really well and maybe just dropped off a little bit, but I do think it's going to be a really good title race this year. There's a lot of teams up there that can, potentially, put a spanner in the works and maybe upset a few teams. So, yeah, we're going to see a lot of, mad results, I think, this year as well. So, it's going to obviously go on consistency this year. I think, if Liverpool can just keep chipping away, then they've got a really good chance.
Yeah, definitely. I do think with that, if they can keep if they can keep the likes of Salah fit, if Virgil van Dijk can stay consistent, and they'll rediscover the form that made him one of the best defenders in the world, Trent can keep excelling in that role. Keeping the goalkeeper fit is probably one of the biggest things as well. Because look, Alisson, you're mentioning games where Liverpool haven't played well. I think he's been exceptional this season. It reminds me of a lot when United didn't play well years ago, and Peter Schmeichel would be a monster, and that's where Alisson is right now. He's been an absolute monster in goal for him. So like if they can do them few things and just keep plugging away, picking up results even when not playing well, they probably should be thereabouts at the end of the season. And like both of you said, I think a lot of the teams in the top half of the table are all taking points off each other, this season. And I think that's where, if that competitive nature stays there, I think there could be a lot of twists and turns in this title race. And again, 3, maybe even 4 teams. If there's still 3 teams in the title race, come let's say late March, April, then we'll see what all these squads are made of, and it could fireworks. There really could be there. I think that's where does Klopp say, right, fuck the Europa League, at that point. Even though it'd be great for Liverpool fans from Ireland to travel up to Dublin in May. I know Jack probably is making arrangements for that already. But look, I do think for them, looking at the way we've injuries this year, now we were not in a title race last year, but we were fighting on 3 fronts, and then we're suffering a hangover of that this year. If I was Liverpool, I'd be like, right, fuck the cups, and just looking at how not how bad, but how irregular City's performances are coming about. They should be going full tilt.
Yeah, no, totally agree. Yeah, totally agree. As I say, I think this year, because of sort of how many teams there is that are sort of showing really good form, and they are going to be taking points off some of these top clubs. I think, as I said, if Liverpool can just go about the business and just trying to keep plug away even when they're not playing well and stay there or thereabouts till after Christmas, then they're going to be in with a definite shot at winning the league. I think this year is probably, as you said, the best chance that they've had, in certainly the last few years anyway, since they've won it.
Yeah, definitely. And also as well, next year, there is a small matter of a court case with Manchester City that could end up, if they get away with that, all hell's probably going to break loose. Both of our clubs are probably going to be involved, in that one as well. So if Liverpool can win a title before that court case happens, who knows, what they can do to build on that. But what we will do just before we wrap up is obviously we're going to give our predicted 11s for the games and then score prediction as well. Jack, as the opposition, you're going to go first. Give me your predicted 11 for Liverpool this weekend.
I'd say it'll be probably similar to what they have been the last few leagues. I'd say it'll be Alisson obviously being goal, Trent, Kanate. I'd say it'll be partner and Van Dijk. It'll probably be Tsimikas and play left back. Szoboszlai will play. Not sure if McAllister will be playing. I think he's still out for this game and the West Ham game, I think. So he might play Endo, Szoboszlai. I'd play Gravenberch as well, to be honest. After that, then it'll be Salah, Nunes, and Diaz, I'd say. It'll be the front 3. The Gravenberch one will be kind of, I don't know, like, will he play Endo just to sit in there, so he probably will play Endo just to sit in there. It'll be either then Gravenberch, if you play Elliott, or Curtis Jones or someone, But I'd say he'll probably go with Gravenberch and play Endo, probably the deepest,
Yeah, I think that's probably what they should go with, especially if Endo can snuff out them attacks. And I think Gravenberch actually, in transition, the way our midfield pushes high up, I think he could be someone who's quite key this week. On that, Phil, do you want to give your predicted 11 for Manchester United? I know we've 13 first team players out, so try your best. What's your predicted 11 for United this weekend?
I think, am I right in saying Rashford and Martial are still unavailable?
Rashford's back. Martial is still in the hospital.
Rashford's back, okay. Yeah, I think obviously, just going off what's available at the moment, I think he'll be forced in playing Onana in net. For me, I'd put Wan-Bissaka in. I think he's, probably our best defender. I think we're going to definitely need somebody who can defend 1v1. I think Wan-Bissaka's probably one of the best in the league at that. I think Varane, Johnny Evans finished the sort of game the other night. Who, obviously Harry Maguire's injured now as well, so that's another big loss for us because, as we touched on before the pod, I think Maguire's probably been our best player, which shows us
a reflection of where we are.
Yeah, that speaks volumes on sort of where we're at the moment. Luke Shaw, left back, and then I think in the midfield it's going to be difficult. Obviously, no Bruno. For me, I think he'll probably go with Amrabat, Mainu, and McTominay. And then I think the front three will be Garnacho, Højlund, and Anthony. I think Rashford obviously will have a part to play coming off the bench. And sort of, he has performed well in games against Liverpool in years gone by. But at the moment, I think, obviously he's sort of out of favour, and we've touched on obviously the confidence that he's got at the moment. So it's a shame really to sort of not have him in the starting team, because you always have visions of him, beating Trent Alexander-Arnold on that, left side and cutting in and doing something. But yeah, I think it's going to be a difficult, difficult day at the office for us. But as we've touched on, anything can happen in football. So you've always got to live in hope that we can get a result.
Yeah, it's more hope than expectation right now, isn't it? I'll give my. I suppose you're bang on the money with that lineup. I say that's what it's going to be. I'm going to give mine. I'll go what I'd go with, not predicted, because Ten Hag won't go with this.
Oh yeah, I would just on that. I mean,
Yeah.
That's what I think the manager will pick. If it was me, I would certainly, have 2 or 3 of the younger lads playing. I'd have Hannibal and a few other people who I would start, but that's just what I think he'll pick.
Yeah, I think you're bang on the money at that as well. I'd go Onana in goal. I do think that the number 2, Alti, needs to get games, but he'll play them 2 games during the African Cup of Nations in January. Yeah, so I'd go Wan-Bissaka, I'd go Varane. Thing about it is, part of me thinks, does he start Johnny Evans in Anfield? I know he's experienced, but with Liverpool's mobile front three, does he maybe go Luke Shaw beside Varane? And maybe, as much as I hate myself for this decision because I don't rate him at all, does he play Dalot left back because what he done against Saka earlier on in the season? Maybe. Sometimes we've seen Salah have issues with right-footed left backs, because he doesn't get to cut in as much because he's that stronger kind of right-footed player there. It's just a thought. I don't look, honestly, I do think Evans probably will start, but it's just kind of a train of thought I have. Midfield, I'd like to see a midfield of Amrabat, Mainu, and Hannibal, because I do think we're going to need to be aggressive, but I think Hannibal 3 or 4 minutes in Anfield probably gets booked straight away for trying to flatten someone. So yeah, I'd probably go that same midfield 3 as yourself, but I think what he should do and how he should approach it is, we all know Scott McTominay pushes forward anyway. We all know that. I'd rather Mainu sit in with Amrabat and try to have a bit of defensive solidity in front of that back four that's probably going to need protection, and Mainu can pick up the ball from the back four and try to get us up the pitch. Obviously with his dribbling ability and obviously his range of passing. And I think I'd actually be playing McTominay in a second striker role. Obviously in that role, kind of similar to what he plays for Scotland in terms of arriving into the box. Don't give him that responsibility to track back, because he doesn't anyway. So play him in that role, where he can, obviously has the license to get into the box, and get on the end of things, and support Højlund up there, because I do think, look how physical Liverpool are at the back. Højlund will need that bit of support up there, against the likes of Van Dijk and Kanate. I think that's one thing McTominay can offer in the box. But yeah, I'd go with obviously Garnacho on the left. Let's say because sometimes Trent does drop into that right back role. Sometimes he does come into midfield. If it's a case where Garnacho's isolate 1v1 against Trent, that may be a route to where United can maybe create a chance, maybe score a goal. But again, it just will we see the ball enough in the midfield to kind of get to that? Highland obviously up front. Again, he hasn't scored in the Premier League yet, but his performances in the Champions League have been quite good. And like I think it's about time he'll get a goal. It won't happen in Anfield, but the goals will start coming for him soon. And you can't play well too much and not score. So eventually he'll make them runs. He will get on to the end of it, and he will put it in the back of the net. And Anfield, I would not be playing Anthony at all. You got roasted there last year. The crowd got on top of him, and he wasn't able to deal with it. I look at a right winger and look at a player who needs to get us off the pitch, take a player on, win a couple of fouls. I'd be playing Palestri there on the right, personally. I think physically, yeah, he can he can be a bit stronger, but I do think from a dribbling ability in terms of playing in transition, I think for him, he can maybe get a run at Timicas, and that's maybe a way we could win. But he will go down to see paid 90 million for him. I do think that'll happen. But yeah, that'd be the 11 I go with. Again, clutching our straws because the amount of injuries we have. It's I'd love to have Mason Mount in this game. I think look at how end to end it could end up being in midfield. I do think he's someone in transition. We've seen how well he's played at Anfield before. But yeah, look, unfortunately, he's out with injury as well. It's very concerning. We paid that much money for someone and he's always injured as well. Again, like we said earlier, it's caused the question how bad the recruitment is. But usually I'd say this is my favorite part of every podcast is the score prediction, but this week it isn't. Not at all. Phil, I'm going to get you to go first. What's your score prediction for Sunday?
Do you want my heads prediction?
Or whatever you want, Ed. Go whichever way.
I think obviously it's going to be a very, very difficult afternoon. I can't see us keeping a clean sheet. I think Liverpool will definitely score a few goals, if not more. And I just think with the real lack of creativity that we've got available, it's going to be a difficult afternoon. I'm going to say 3-0 to Liverpool, and I think that's sort of being quite kind. I know that's very sort of negative, but I just honestly can't see us, doing anything in this game. I think we're just not there at the moment. We're not at the races, and I don't think even sort of in years gone by, I could maybe look at this fixture and say, yeah, well, form goes out the window, and it's a derby, it's Liverpool, Man United. I've really not got the sort of belief in the players that they're even going to be up for a battle, up for a fight. I think an early goal goes in, it could end up being a really embarrassing scoreline. So I'm just going to say 3-0 and hope that that's not the score, but I just can't see us scoring.
Yeah, I don't think so either. Jack, what's your score prediction for Sunday?
Yeah, he took my score prediction now straight away. I was going to say 3-0 as well, to be honest. I was going to say 2 or 3-0, but I'd say probably 3, to be honest. I didn't realise all the players that you had out injured as well. I didn't realise Fernandez was gone. So, yeah, to be honest, I'd say probably 3-0, to be honest. At home and Anfield as well. Look, it all depends on how they start as well. Like, if as Phil touched there, if Liverpool get an early goal, it could get a bit messy, with the crowd there and the atmosphere.
New stand as well, actually, open this weekend as
well.
Yeah,
that's supposed to be opening as well. So there'll be an excitement around for... there'll be a lot more people in there, and as hard as it is to play at Anfield, and before that, the crowd down there, they're brilliant, to be fair. And look, if they get an early goal, it could get a bit messy, to be fair. But look, it's you have to have I know you're saying before, you could say the games could go either way. Like, it's more hope for you more than anything going into the game. Hopefully they might turn up like they did against Chelsea and run themselves into the ground and maybe get something out of the game. But if they don't do the simple things like running you're going to have to run further than you've ran in any other game against Liverpool. You know, they keep the ball and stuff like that. So you're going to have to go into it. You'll have to suffer. Like, and if you come out of it the other side, you might get something out of it. But if you can't find a way to get out of that stage when you're suffering, you don't have the ball or you're chasing, well, then it could get a bit messy. But, like, you know, in them games, like before, they could go either way. But I just think it'll be 3-0 Liverpool, to be fair, as well.
We've 2-3-0s. I've never, like, it's fucked for me because I've never ever went with us to lose in any score prediction I've done. You're being way too nice, I think, to both of you in terms of the score prediction. I think it's gonna be 6 on Sunday. I'm not just being brutally honest. I do think it's gonna be 6-0 Liverpool. I do think these players, like Jack mentioned, they don't like a fight, they don't like running, they don't like putting in a tackle, they don't like jumping up for a header, they don't like doing any of that stuff. I do think new stand opening up in Liverpool, they're after losing 2 games in a row. They're going to want to obviously put things right in front of their home crowd, and especially if you look at the Fulham game, the last one, the last home game before obviously last weekend, like they're gonna want to obviously put on a better performance than that. Unfortunately for us, it's United are the next team at Anfield, so. Yeah, I do think it's going to be that. I do think Liverpool are going to put us to the sword. And again, it's going to be unfortunate because I do think what's probably going to happen is that the manager is probably going to get the sack, even though I'd be sacking the players instead of him. But unfortunately, that's probably what's going to happen. But on that, we've all got our score predictions on that. And obviously, do make sure to like and subscribe as well. And also, this video is sponsored by Mind Manchester. Obviously, it's a mental health charity base in Manchester. Obviously, this time of year and coming up to Christmas still is probably a tough, like obviously all year round is a tough time to do. This time of year is probably tougher for most. So obviously look after your loved ones. They'll send them a message. They'll make sure they're okay. Reach out to your friends even if you haven't talked to them in a long time. Just check up on each other. Especially this time of year, it's very tough. Obviously, you can see below if you text MM2023 donate to 70085. Text will cost a donation amount of £3 plus the standard rate message. And obviously all that goes to Mind Manchester, obviously mental health charity, and they do a lot of great work in the local area in terms of obviously working with people, and not just Manchester, but they actually have other branches as well throughout the UK as well. So look, anything you can do for them, do. If you're not donating there, they'll reach out to your friends and make sure they're okay. And obviously, if you're feeling any sort of way, reach out to any of us in the channel. Our DMs are always open, and look, good, bad, or indifferent, we're all here for each other. So look, absolutely, make sure you're looking after yourself, looking after your friends, and most importantly, putting your friends and family first. That's the most important thing. But on that, thanks very much, to the two lads, for coming on. And it was great to hear both of their insight on the game and what's going on at the club as well. And also as well, like, look, it's great to catch up. Both of you haven't been on a show with two of you in a while, so it was good to catch up on that note. But hope everyone has a good weekend. And if I don't see the two of you before the Christmas, New Year, hope you both have a good Christmas. Enjoy it with your family and your loved ones as well, lads. And yeah, we'll see you tomorrow. As I said, see you tomorrow. We'll see you on Sunday for the match reaction stream. God help the fucking host of that show. But anyway, until then, guys, we're out here.